Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Market Down Podcast. My name is Nick Cummings, and I'm alone, which is really, really odd. But I made a promise to one of our most loyal viewers, JL, who's already in the chat. So, hello, Jay. I see you in there. I understand your frustration. We'll get to that in a bit. So, I am here to review NXT Stand and Deliver. And I got to say, this was good. I haven't been back to NXT in a very long time. I kind of fell off after the Black and Gold brand kind of went away, and some of that old guard with like Adam Cole and all those guys kind of left. Bobby Fish. Sorry, I can't say Bobby Fish name seriously anymore. Kyle O'Reilly, guys like that, they started to leave. Gargano, Ciampa, and this new guard has come in. So this is my first experience with NXT in a really long time, and I got to say, I really did enjoy myself. There was a lot of really good wrestling here. Obviously I didn't know some of the storylines, but I had a lot of fun here. So, and Jay, I know you're chomping at the bit. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to do Braun Breaker versus Carmelo Hayes last. It was the main event. So I'm going to close on that. So I'm going to go in order, and I'm going to start with the ladder match for the women's championship, which saw reigning champion Roxanne Perez face off against Zoe Stark, Gigi Doll, and Tiffany Stratton. Lyra Valkyria. Oh God, I was trying to pronounce her name the entire fucking time and I already forgot it. And Indy Hartwell. This was a very, very good ladder match. These women took a lot of serious bumps. Death Valley drivers off these ladders. Just a whole lot of good stuff here. I very much enjoy it. There was a really cool spot. Roxanne was hanging off Zoe Stark's leg on the ladder to keep her from getting the title, which just showed the leg strength of Zoe Stark. We saw, excuse me, I'm still fighting off this head cold from last week, so you're gonna have to forgive me on that. We saw Valkyria be on a trio low on the ladder, and she had the core strength to come back up. But Gigi Dolan was also up there. Gigi ended up knocking her off, and then her rival, of course, JC Jane, comes in and knocks Gigi off the ladder into the horizontal ladder spread across between the one that was up near the title and the ropes, knocking Gigi out of the running for everything. Tiffany Stratton then went up the ladder, and she's knocked off by Indy Hartwell. And, because Indy tipped the ladder over, and Stratton is sent into the rest of the women on the outside, and nobody fucking caught her. I hope she's okay. Like, that looked nasty as all hell. But Indy had been so just run roughshod over throughout the entire match that she was unable to climb the ladder. And so we got my guy, Dexter Lumis. Yes, Dexter Lumis came back. He helped Indy climb the ladder, put her on his shoulders and climb the ladder for her. And Indy Hartwell is your new NXT Women's Champion. First of all, Index Forever. I love them. It's one of the best things NXT has done since they've gone to the colorful brand. Excuse me. I really enjoyed this match. There's a lot of women I was, seeing for the first time, and a lot of them stood out. Tiffany Stratton stood out to me. Zoe Stark stood out to me. I know she was in the Rumble, but it was one of those things where like she was new, so I didn't really know who she was and couldn't truly remember her. Now I've seen her wrestle in a full match. She was very, very good. She stood out to me a lot. Stratton looks to have a really good character, and she's very good in the ring. I look forward to seeing more of her as well. Valkyria, same thing. These women, they did a really good job. Obviously, Roxanne Perez, now the former champion, she's phenomenal. I'm glad she's back. They have been saying it was like an anxiety thing with her, and that's what kept her out of action for a while. If that is the case, I hope she's doing well mentally, and I'm glad she was able to come back in and do her thing. I'm getting a lot of people in the chat, Jay, and hi Danny, good to see you, wanting me to do the main event. And you know what? I'm going to call an audible. Let's go for the main event, because really, that's why I'm truly here. I'm truly here for Jay, and he wants to talk about the main event. And for those of you already in the chat, you can see Jay is, like I said, chomping at the bit for this. So I truly enjoy this match. I think this is the first match I've seen from Braun Breaker in total. And I'd seen Carmelo Hayes, but it's been a really long time since I've seen him. So it's this Carmelo Hayes I haven't seen yet. And this Carmelo Hayes is awesome. The one thing I'm going to say about Breaker that I didn't like, he did the dog thing a little too much. Like I get people, he's got that dog in him. It's the meme on Twitter. I do like I do like it. Him like literally chasing down Carmelo at one point like a dog was a bit too much, but I'm okay with that. Uh, but Braun Baker, Jay, you are right. He is that guy. He is that good. He is a big man who can move and do a lot of the flippy stuff. He's a little bit smaller and more compact, but like a more agile like Brian Cage type of deal where, and I'm just trying to, make some sort of comp for me of somebody who's seen. I'm not comparing to Brian Cage. He's far better than Brian Cage. No disrespect to Brian Cage, but he's able to do all the big man spots with the power, and he was able also to, do all that athletic stuff. A lot of hurricanranas, a lot, and a lot of stuff like that. He's awesome. So about halfway through the match, Hayes was up in the torture rack, and Hayes' second trick, he ended up pulling Carmelo off of Braun's shoulders. That got Trick thrown out of ringside. Braun was then able to hit a tope and a bulldog from the top rope after he threw Carmelo back in the ring, but Carmelo was able to kick out. Later in the match, Braun Breaker hit a massive spear on Carmelo, but took out the ref in the process. Danny, I will get to your question in a second. Let me just finish running this down. Excuse me. Breaker was then able to lock in the camel clutch. I don't know what he calls it. I'm sorry, I didn't hear. And Carmelo had to tap out, but the referee was still down, so he didn't see it. Trick came back in from backstage. He took the title. He hit Breaker in the back with it and placed Carmelo on top of Breaker for the pin and woke the ref up. The referee then came in for the very, very slow count, and Breaker was able to kick out of that. Breaker eventually got himself up and had Carmelo in the press, but Carmelo was able to counter that, went up top, hit the nothing but net, and was able to win the NXT title. After the match, Breaker took the title from the referee to give it to Carmelo. He offered a fist bump. Carmelo went with the paper covers rock, and then Breaker raised Carmelo's arm before leaving. Now, the controversy involving his father. Rick Steiner was at a contract signing. He apparently harassed one of the members of the Impact locker room, and I literally just saw this on Reddit, so I don't know all the specifics, but that member of the Impact locker room was transgender. He was using homophobic slurs towards them, so I don't know the full specifics. I don't know if that's something that impacted Braun's reaction, but that being said, Jay obviously very, very annoyed at this crowd here. There were some boos, and I don't think they were towards the match, nor do I think they were towards Braun. To be that honest, I thought this match was phenomenal. It really, really was. And as of experience for a full Braun Breaker match, as I noticed I spelled Breaker wrong on the banner, but it's too late. I'm not going to fix it. It was highly entertaining. Here's my thing. From what I was seeing, both of these guys were booked as faces, both Carmelo and Braun. And they seem to have a mutual respect for each other. Obviously, some shit talking during the match, Breaker doing the pull-up J bit and everything during it. But I don't understand having Trick come in, hit Braun with the title, and then we see Braun then go and shake Carmelo's hand like he beat him cleanly. Now, I don't know what Carmelo knows about Trick doing that. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where maybe it's just Trick being on his own and perhaps eventually turning on Carmelo or Carmelo turning on Trick or whatever it is. Maybe they're trying to set that up. Just a very odd situation there at the end. But I can understand their mutual respect. I think we can all see that Braun is at some point eventually going to move up from NXT. Obviously, Jay says he is above NXT. And I think he's kind of at that point where he is going to go to the main roster in the near future, whether that's now or after. I do believe the next NXT uh, pay per view or PLE or whatever the hell they're calling them is, I think they called it Battleground or something. I only caught that out of the corner of my eye, but he's going up in the near future, which I think is why he showed the respect to Carmelo. But it's still so weird. Like in character, it just kind of makes him look stupid. Where I could see him having respect for Carmelo, but like he should have been like, "Yo, your boy was cheating," or kind of got in Trick's face or something like that. So I can understand why uh, why people were upset with this ending. I can understand why people were upset with this crowd. Quite frankly, I thought this crowd wasn't that great in general. I thought there was a lot they could have been cheering louder for. And maybe it's just me coming from old school black and gold NXT where those crowds were insanely hot all the time. The presentation was a little, for lack of a phrase, dirtier. Like this felt very sterile WWE, which is disappointing. I kind of liked that there was a difference between main roster and NXT, and now it just feels like I was, watching an episode of Raw, except there were barricades instead of the these new LED sides and everything. I don't even think they had the LED aprons, which is interesting because NXT innovated those. But very, very good main event. Jay, please keep giving me your comments. I'll bounce off all of them as I can, and I will continue to talk about this main event. But I do want to talk about some of the other matches on this card. I did cover the women's match, so we will check in with the NXT Tag Team Champion match, which saw Gallus versus the Creed Brothers versus the family. I, as an Italian American, very much like the family. My guy Tony D'Angelo, with a guy named Stax, the perfect tag team for us. Uh, wow, that was a little more Daddy Magic than Italian, but I this match was good. It was an actual triple threat, so we had each team have a member in the ring, which is way better for me. I appreciate that much more. So it was cool. There was a double Doomsday device from the Creed Brothers. The Creed Brothers could have been really cool, but they kind of missed it. So that's just going to end up on the he didn't get all of it section of Botchamania later. Uh, anyway, this match ended with the family hitting the bada bing, bada boom, and Stax went for the cover. But Joe Coffey was Mark Coffey's brother of Gallus. He came in out of nowhere, pulled Stax off. He then laid out Tony D'Angelo as Tony tried to save Stax, but Stax was thrown back in the ring. Gallus hit their finisher on Stax and were able to retain their titles. The end of this match went over like a fart in church. Like nobody cared. Nobody had any idea who Joe Coffey was, or even if they did, just this crowd sucked. It genuinely sucked. Nobody seemed to fucking care, and it was disappointing. Like back in the old days with NXT, like somebody showed up and it was awesome, and it was a huge pop. So seeing somebody come back and have absolutely nobody give a shit is incredibly disappointing. So I feel bad for Tony and Stacks more than anything else. So this honestly, very good match. It was well wrestled. Just nobody gave a shit about the ending, and it is what it is. Right, we move now on to Wesley versus Dragon Lee versus JG McDonough, who I didn't realize was Jordan Devlin. I didn't know he got a name change. Uh, also in this match were people who are going to come through the slider. Ilya Dragunov, thank you, and Axiom. This match, honestly, low key, one of the best on the card. It was a lot of fun, a lot of hot, fast paced, high octane action. It was really cool. Dragon Lee being in NXT is awesome. Obviously, a New Japan guy. He's in NXT. I think this was his first match officially. So super hyped. I'm really excited to see what he ends up doing there. But we got a lot of cool stuff. Yes, Danny, there is another show this later this evening. I do it's this like tiny indie show called WrestleMania. I don't know how well it's going to do, but I think people want to watch it. So I think I think that's why they put the show on at 1 p.m. So I don't know. I'm not the booker of this company. Anyway, this match was really, really cool. There wasn't actually a pin for a really long time, which is kind of surprising when you have these multi-man matches. Usually somebody tries to go for a quick one early, but we didn't really get one until McDonough went for one on Wes Lee, and then Dragunov actually slid in under the official's hand to stop the count. His Wrestling Mania disease. Yeah, probably. Dragunov, Axiom, and Dragon Lee then all dropped kick McDonough, and they were all down. And somehow in this process, Dragunov got his forehead busted open. I don't know how. All he did was hit a drop kick, but I don't know, Danny. Do you want to review AEW All Access? Anyway, uh, a bit after that, Axiom was trying to put in a submission on Dragunov, but Dragunov ended up grabbing McDonough, and then they both had submissions in on McDonough. McDonough was able to break up. Then Dragon Lee entered the ring. He had a submission in, and Dragunov had a submission in, and Dragunov ended up power bombing Axiom onto Lee and the other man who was McDonough. And then there was a pinfall, and Wesley broke up like a four-way pin. It was pretty crazy, but a really cool spot. I'm terribly describing it. Anyway, later in the match, Wesley and Dragon Lee were laying in his trash to Dragunov. He took all of them. He was continually fighting back. And just a side note, I love Ilya Dragunov. His matches with then Walter, now Gunther, were unbelievable. It's one of the few matches I've seen in full of the new school NXT, and they're so hard hitting. There's so they're violent and they're so good. So him still being in this role of just guy who can take all of the hits is awesome. And in this spot here, he literally took all of the hits and was actually able to gain an advantage. He then went for the torpedo, which is his finisher. But as he hit it on Dragon Lee, Wesley hit the cardiac kid and pinned Dragunov to retain his title. So Wesley, who challenged all five of these men, three of them he handpicked. Axiom won a battle royal to be the fifth man. He retains his title. Ballsy move by the kid, but he's able to retain in what was a phenomenal match. And I think, honestly, outside of this next match, probably the best match on the card. I do want to throw a shout out real quick to Pretty Deadly. They were the hosts of this, and I haven't experienced them before, but they are really fucking funny. They were outside Braun Breaker's locker at one point, and they were too afraid to knock because he had kicked the shit out of them earlier. At this point, they were outside of Carmelo Hayes' locker room, and they were still too afraid to knock because Carmelo had also kicked the shit out of them. But eventually, Trick came out and he cut a promo on them and then liked their jackets, and they were dressed both phenomenally and hilariously throughout the night. So I think those two guys did a great job. Next up on the card, we had Johnny Gargano versus Grayson Waller in the unsanctioned match. Now, I don't understand why this match was at this point in the card. You would think an unsanctioned match would be at the end. Maybe this is me, AEW brain, lights out matches go at the end. I don't know, but it seems, especially considering Gargano's past unsanctioned matches with Ciampa were at the end. I thought this would be at the end. It wasn't, but this was still a really, really good match. Obviously, Johnny is just phenomenal at these type of matches. Grayson Waller, who I'm a little new to, he's a really, really good heel. He's got a good look. He's got a entrance where he's on his Instagram live that they're also showing on the screen. A little bit of on a delay, obviously, but really cool. He tuned up the band at one point because obviously he's this whole beef comes from his feud with Shawn Michaels, who is currently running NXT. So the kid's got it. He really, really does. The kid's got it. He was healing up in front of Candace the whole match, so she eventually got involved, which we'll get to. So just I really like the kid, and I see big things for him in the future. There was a chair spot in this match. We had 6 chairs lined up next to each other, seats all facing each other, and Johnny suplexed Waller over the rope, off the apron, onto all of these. I think Johnny ended up taking the the worst of it, and he ended up selling his lower back for the majority of the match, so you could kinda see that's how bad that he took the brunt of that. It was a nasty, nasty looking bump. Eventually, like I said, Candace did get involved. It had to happen. She was right there ringside with Quinn, her and Johnny's kid, obviously. Somebody was there with her, obviously, so she could hand the baby off. She wasn't coming in here, and throwing hands with the kid in her arm, although that would have been funny. Uh, she should have brought out the old school Young Bucks tack shoe, but probably a little too violent. But she did grab a kendo stick and just absolutely wear it out over Waller, and her and Johnny just freaking tore up his back. He was welted all over. Eventually, Waller kicked out of a one final beat, and then Johnny put in the Gargano escape, but Waller went after the eyes, and he was able to get out of that. He was then able to get Johnny into a trash can and hit a real good looking coast to coast. Honestly, it, those are like obviously really tough because you got to go all the way across the ring. So anybody who can hit that, a a general consistency and B making it look good, especially, since Shane McMahon can't do it anymore. Uh, anybody who can genuinely do it solidly is good in my book. So he had a real nice coast to coast. He's also, while he does, really nice roll through stunner. I don't necessarily know if he always rolls through the ropes. He did it at one point during the match. He rolled over a table on the outside, like he jumped over and rolled through and hit the stunner. But he did it later in the match where he was coming through the ropes and hit the stunner, and it's a really nice looking move. So good on him for that. Gargano eventually hit a low blow. Waller hit it one earlier, so turnabout is fair play. And then he just started wearing out a couple of chairs on Waller, including wrapping one around Waller's neck and hitting it with another chair. Real nasty looking. He then locked in the Gargano escape, and Waller was forced to tap out. After the match, Indy and Dexter came out onto the ramp, and the Way family celebrated. It was really nice. I'm glad they did it. But like I said, this match was really, really good. I thought this was match of the night personally. Maybe it's just my bias towards Johnny Gargano and my newfound love of Grayson Waller, but this is phenomenal. I truly, truly enjoyed this match. I suggest you check it out. Not Gargano's best unsanctioned match, obviously. Like all that stuff with Ciampa will never be touched with him. I don't want to call it his peak, but I mean those were so so good. So it is what it is. And now we come to the last match before the main event. Actually, before that though, really quick, we had Pretty Deadly backstage again. They interrupted the family as Stacks was very upset that he let the family down because he got pinned. But Tony was like, "No, it's not your fault. Don't worry about it." But Pretty Deadly came in. They antagonized the two guys. That led to a shoving match, which was split apart, and they will be having a match on NXT on Wednesday. But we get to the women's tag team title match, which was Fallon Henley and Kiana James versus Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. Uh, this match was in a very unfortunate spot. It had to follow the Gargano match. It was I even me like I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to this match. And I felt bad. Like I wanted to watch it, but this was a very storyline driven match. And because I'm not a regular viewer of NXT, I didn't necessarily know what was going on, even though I did kind of pick up, obviously, a lot of tension between the champs, Henley and James. James was trying to cheat for a while, and Henley and their two guys weren't truly about that. So towards the end of the match, James asked for her handbag that one of the men was holding. Uh, Apparently, there's always some sort of nasty thing in there, and both Henley and her man were very hesitant about James getting the bag. James ended up not getting the bag. Fire and Dawn were able to take advantage of the distraction. Excuse me. Dawn hit a backstabber, and then Fire hit a swanton while still on the backstabber, and they were able to pick up the win and the title. So, like I said, a little bit of a disappointing spot for these women in terms of where they were on the card, especially for a title change. You would think you want a title change somewhere where it would be more prominently presented, but had to follow Gargano. It's not an easy spot, and it was right before the main event. So, just a weird spot for the cool down. I don't know. Little disappointing. And I don't think this was a bad match. It was very, very well wrestled. It was really, really hard to get into, especially for me personally, as somebody who didn't truly know the story dynamics. But even if I did, I think I would have had a hard time getting into this in general. But that was the show. Like I said, I did cover the Braun Breaker match, but very good. I thought this card, top to bottom, was very solid. Like I said, my first foray back in the NXT in a very long time. Like I said, I think Cole left. So I think I'm going to start trying to check out the pay-per-views again. I was never a weekly NXT viewer, even back when it was Black and Gold. I never watched day in and day out. So I will try to check in. I'll try to keep up on the internet and then check in for, I still call them takeovers. I know they're not takeovers, but they're and try to watch those. There's a lot of good talent on NXT. I think they finally found their stride since the shift from Black and Gold brand to the new version of NXT. Shawn Michaels seems to be doing a very, very good job of booking this roster, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to new champion Lee Hartwell. Congratulations to her. New champ Carmelo Hayes has a lot of charisma, and we'll see where he goes from here. And I don't know what to do women's tag team championship. But it is what it is. And obviously, we still have the implosion of Toxic Attraction to look forward to. So there's a lot here. I hope for those of you who enjoy NXT, had a really good time. Please come out later tonight to watch our WrestleMania live review. We will be on shortly after the main event ends. And if you want to watch that, please be sure to like and subscribe to the Market Down podcast. We are here many times every week. We'll be here all weekend, providing you with a lot of stuff. Obviously, this. We'll be here tonight. Like I said, we'll be here tomorrow night as well after night two ends. James is on location in Los Angeles. He will be providing us with some content from LA throughout the weekend and through next week, I believe. We'll see what he gets. So, yeah, like I said, be sure to like and subscribe. You can also catch all of our other shows. We have Danny's Raw Fast Forwards on Mondays. We are live after AEW Dynamite every Wednesday. And we have new episodes pretty much every Thursday. Also, we have Gym Pact of Honor on Thursday as well, where James, when he's actually home, and that man is going to be Carmen San Diego for the next few weeks, so the show will be on hiatus for a bit. But Gym Pact of Honor, where James reviews both Impact and Ring of Honor, is on Thursdays as well. Be sure to check out all our social media stuff in the description below if you are on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. A lot of memes on Instagram from Danny. Shout out to him. I will be live tweeting WrestleMania tonight if you would like to join me there as well. So for me, Nick Cummings, thank you so much for watching us here at the Market Down Podcast. I hope to see you tonight. And if not, enjoy this beautiful weather, everybody. It is fucking gorgeous out. So get a little nice weather in before 8 o'clock, and then we'll see you back here tonight after WrestleMania ends. Have a good one, everyone, and enjoy the show.